From the heart of the Space City to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey everybody, how are we? Welcome to the Next Gen Report. Super happy to be with you today. If you missed it, over the last couple of days, I had the honor of guest hosting Kenny Webster's Pursuit of Happiness. That was a blast. If you're here because you heard me there, welcome. This is what you were told about. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan. It's a pleasure to be with you. Before we get started, I wanted to share with you some fun stuff from our sponsor, Deus Volt lapel pins. Check this out. If you're listening right now, you can just listen to me talk about it. But if you're watching on the recorded video, you can see it right now. Beautiful pre-release lapel pins. These, honestly, I cannot speak highly enough of the Deus Volt lapel pin lines. Here's the 1824 Alamo flag. We've got some cool Florida pins, Virginia pins. There's the Goliad flag. I believe that's the Holy Roman Empire flag. So listen, if you're a history lover of any kind, there's a pin for you here. And again, I wear these literally every single day. They make the jackets look so much better. If you're wearing a suit jacket without a lapel pin ever, put a lapel pin on it. It'll make it look a whole lot nicer. And of course, we've got the religious pins. If you're any denomination of Christianity, there's a pin here that will represent you well. The Jerusalem cross pins are my favorite. I love the history of those. There's a ton of variety. Most of them are in stock right now, which is rare. These usually sell out pretty quickly. So go to deusvoltlapelpins.com, DEUSVULT lapelpins.com. Listen, they're between $6 and $6.50 a piece. They're not expensive. You can get a whole pack for really cheap, and they are high quality lapel pins. So I cannot recommend them to you enough. All right, let's get rolling here with the show. First and foremost, early voting is underway right now in the primaries for the midterm elections. This is, and I cannot say this enough, the most important time to make sure you are going out and voting. It's it right here, all right? There are so many people that just completely ignore the primaries. That is a terrible idea. One, you should be voting in every election possible, but if nothing else, go vote in the primaries because this determines the future of whatever party you're in. If you're a Democrat and you're upset about how radical the Democrat Party has become, vote in the primaries because the radicals are. So if you're sitting here going, I don't recognize this party, this doesn't represent me, go vote in the primaries for the party to be different. All right? You can do that right now. Not right now, but tomorrow morning, Monday morning, go vote. It's not hard. It's actually really easy. It's barely an inconvenience. I already did it. Look, I got my sticker. It's super easy to do, and you should be doing it. But for whatever reason, and I still haven't figured out why exactly I think this is, but people just don't tend to vote in the primaries, especially in off-year elections like the midterms. When a president is not on the top of the ticket, people just don't show up. And I'll give you an example for this. We're seeing this in real time. This is from Vote Hub. This is from, I believe, Friday. So this was the last day of early voting last week. There's 2 weeks of early voting. We're heading into right now the second week. And then it'll be March 3rd, which is the actual election day. That'll be the very last day to go vote. But we've had early voting all week last week. And the turnout has just not been there. This is statewide. Only 277,706 Democrats have voted so far in the Democrat primaries. In the Republican primary, only 251,000. Now, I've seen some people online panicking, some conservatives online panicking. Oh my gosh, the Republicans aren't showing up. We're going to lose in November. That's not what this means. That just means Republicans aren't showing up in the primary. Which means if you go into the voting booth in November and you see John Cornyn on the ballot and you don't want him to be there, that's why. It's because you didn't show up and vote. Go vote. If you don't want John Cornyn to be on your ballot in November, now is when you go vote. If you don't want Greg Abbott on your ballot in November, now is when you go vote. This is it. This is the moment. If you want the Republican Party to go farther to the right, go vote now. Don't wait until November. Because if you elect the same folks that have been there for 20 years, nothing is going to change. This is when you have the greatest effect on the political direction of your party. Go vote right now. Do your research. Find out which candidates you like, which candidates you don't, and go vote. And then in November, go vote for these people again. Now, on top of that, we have had, it's difficult to talk about this because I don't want to sound like I'm being too mean to people, but I also want to sound like I'm being a little bit mean. Educate yourself before you vote, not just on who you're going to vote for, but also the process. Please, don't show up to the voting booth with no idea how this works because, again, this isn't a complicated system, and you're embarrassing everybody when you do stuff like I'm about to talk about right now. This is a tweet from Sarah Gonzalez. And listen, I like Sarah Gonzalez. She does a lot of good stuff. This tweet is stupid. Election interference. That's the big headline she puts on it. Concerned voter in Texas just sent this in. If I was Ken Paxton, I'd be furious. Ballot does not display Ken Paxton's name in Harris County unless you scroll down to it. And here's the little picture they put up. First of all, do not take a picture in the voting booth. That's illegal. Don't do that. And second of all, you can see in this picture, right there at the bottom, to see more choices, touch here. There is a lot of candidates in this race. You might have to scroll to see them all. The button could not be more obvious. It's big, it's bright, it's orange, it's right there. Just press it. I did, and I voted for Ken Paxton. That's not an endorsement. I'm just telling you what I did. It's not that hard. There's no big conspiracy. Nobody's trying to screw you over. Just scroll down. This is not rocket science. How many older folks, this is her follow-up tweet, how many older folks or voters with limited technology knowledge won't know how to scroll down? If you can't figure that out, you probably should not be in the voter booth. It couldn't be simpler. Just press the button. Listen, the primaries are important. It's important that you vote. It's important that you know how to vote. Don't throw a temper tantrum over something silly and ridiculous. This, again, it is not rocket surgery. It's not that hard. All right? Listen, we got a lot to talk about today. I will be right back in just a minute with more of the Next Gen Report. Alrighty, we got some real fun stuff coming up a little bit later in the show. I'm Ethan Buchanan. This is the Next Gen Report. Follow me on X real quick, @_Ethan Buchanan, BUCHANAN. We're going to be talking about Civil War battle and reenactment that's coming up in the next month or so. Very excited about that. The organizer of that event will be joining us. We'll just have a whole fun conversation about history and the event itself and what you can expect if you choose to attend. I hope you go. It's a great time every year. So that's coming up. But before we talk about that, we got to talk about this tariffs ruling that we got on Friday. There's some amount of confusion from what I've seen online as to what exactly this ruling means, what it does, what we do going forward. It's kind of weird. So let's start, I guess, with just here's the ruling itself from the Supreme Court. In a 6-3 vote, the Supreme Court strikes down President Trump's tariffs. That's not completely true. The Supreme Court has struck down some of President Trump's tariffs. It's very, very important to emphasize that point. I've seen a lot of folks on X and other parts of the internet that are going and saying, oh, all of Trump's tariffs have been shut down. The president cannot tariff. That's not what the Supreme Court did. All right, that's a very important to know. Holding that the president cannot use the EPA Act to tariff. Very, very, very specific act there. IEEPA. I don't remember what exactly that stands for. Let me see if I can find it in my yes, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. He can't use that specific act in order to issue tariffs. That's what the ruling was, okay? So if anyone tells you, oh, his tariffs have been struck down, his tariffing powers have been struck down, that's not what happened. Only very specific tariffs were struck down here. The court's ruling applies only to tariffs imposed under IEEPA, that's via SCOTUS wire. The decision does not invalidate tariffs imposed under other statutes, IG Section 232 or Section 301. It holds only that IEEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. Now, this is where there's been a lot of confusion because IEEPA is a very wide-ranging act. It gives the president a whole lot of power, but I guess apparently not the power to tariff, which doesn't make sense. The president under this act can do all sorts of things. He can completely embargo trade from other countries, but not tariff, which is just, it's kind of weird, right? I mean, that's a little bit weird. Brett Kavanaugh did the dissent for this opinion. I think he did a good job of kind of calling this out. He said, although I firmly disagree with the court's holdings today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That is because numerous other federal statutes authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case, albeit perhaps with a few additional procedural steps that IEEPA as an emergency statute does not require. Those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Section 232, and Trade Act of 1974, Sections 122, 201, and 301, and the Tariff Act of 1930. In essence, the court today concludes that the president checked the wrong statutory box by relying on IEEPA rather than another statute to impose the tariffs. So essentially, he can still tariff, he just can't tariff like that, which makes this from Thomas Massie kind of weird. He's doing a victory lap on this because only Congress can tariff, which is just not the case. He tweeted out, some have asked me to comment on the SCOTUS ruling striking down tariffs based on emergencies declared by the executive. Why should I comment when Gorsuch already nailed it right here? And here's the majority opinion. He says, for those who think it's important for the nation to impose more tariffs, I understand that today's decision will be disappointing. All I can offer them is that most major decisions affecting the rights and responsibilities of the American people, including the duty to pay tariffs and taxes, are funneled through the legislative process for a reason. So basically, Thomas Massie is doing a victory lap because a tariff and a tax are the same thing, and Congress has taxing power. I think tariffs and taxes are very similar, but I think there is a distinction. And on top of that, while Congress does, according to the Constitution, have the power to issue taxes, they have also, again, like, what's his face? I'm blanking on his name, Kavanaugh. Like Kavanaugh points out in his dissent here, Congress has, on a number of occasions, delegated that power to the president. So the president can issue tariffs. Specifically, Section 232, it's kind of weird and complicated, so I'll explain it to you. Basically, President Trump is just going to have to go through some more steps in order to issue these tariffs. He's going to have to, rather than just saying, I'm putting a tariff, he's going to have to say, okay, this branch of the executive or this division of the executive branch is going to have to go and do an investigation and then issue a report, and then I'll do the tariff. So basically, instead of just saying, here's a tariff, he's going to have to take a 90-day process to issue these tariffs. That's basically what Section 232 does. So all of this was a nothing burger because we'll be right back where we started before too long. So why bother? What was the point? Why are we going and doing this big victory lap? And again, this ruling really doesn't make any sense either. Because you're essentially saying that President Trump can embargo an entire country under IEEPA, but he can't issue a tariff under IEEPA, which I think is a ridiculous interpretation of IEEPA. Now, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a legislator, so take my opinion for what it's worth. But how does it make sense to say that you can completely shut down trade to a country, but you can't impose some terms and conditions to that trade? I mean, even Trump is confused about this. Here he is in his speech following the trade ruling saying this doesn't make any sense.
But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1. Because that's not what it says. And that's not the way it even reads. I can do anything I want to do to them, but I can't charge any money. So I'm allowed to destroy the country, but I can't charge them a little fee. I could give them a little two-cent fee, but I cannot charge under any circumstances. I cannot charge them anything. Think of that. How ridiculous is that? I'm allowed to embargo them. I'm allowed to tell them you can't do business in the United States anymore. We want you out of here. But if I want to charge them $10, I can't do that. It's incorrect. Their decision's incorrect. But it doesn't matter because we have very powerful alternatives that have been approved by this decision.
And he's right. This, in the long run, will mean nothing. The left is, of course, trying to paint this as a big victory. There are some folks on the right that are saying this is a big defeat. It really is kind of a nothing burger. It's a procedural bump in the road. There's been a lot of talk about billions and billions of dollars of tariff money that we took in that we're now going to have to refund. I don't picture that happening. If it does happen, it's going to take a long time. Every single person who wants a refund is going to have to sue individually. That process is going to take years if it happens at all. So really all this means is nothing. President Trump immediately in that same press conference turned around and issued a whole slew of new tariffs under other acts. So all of this is a nothing burger. To those that are wanting to panic over this, don't panic over this. It's not that big of a deal. It's annoying. It's weird. The ruling from the Supreme Court doesn't make a lot of sense just on a raw practical level. But is this the end of President Trump's career and his entire agenda? No, it's just going to make it a little bit more complicated because the act that we wanted to use to do this stuff quickly, we apparently can't use to do it quickly, so we have to do things the long and hard way, which is fine. Whatever. All right, we got a lot more coming up. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alrighty, y'all, welcome back. This feels like a good time to remind you that this show is sponsored by Deus Volt lapel pins. That's DEUSVULT lapelpins.com. If you wear a suit jacket even once a week, maybe it's just to church, go get you a Deus Volt lapel pin. It adorns the jacket beautifully. These are high quality pieces and they're not overly expensive. You can get a whole pack of like 3 or 4 for under $30. So I highly recommend the Deus Volt lapel pins. 1, because they're a show sponsor, and 2, because I wear them myself and I love them. And they represent everything from Christian heritage to American heritage. And American heritage is what we're going to be talking about in this segment. So if you know me, you know that I do historical reenactments. It's something that I've enjoyed for a very long time. And I have one coming up here in April that is probably my all-time favorite historical reenactment. So I wanted to have someone on who could talk a little bit about it. So the Battle of Pleasant Hill, I believe was in 1863, but it may have been 1864. I believe it was 1864. And I'm about to get lectured for not knowing this off the top of my head. But here to talk with us a little bit about the Battle of Pleasant Hill and historical reenacting is Miss Caitlin Nicole Calhoun, who is the Grand Poobah. She is the showrunner of the Battle of Pleasant Hill, which far and away is the greatest historical reenactment you have ever or will ever gone to. So here she is. Caitlin, good morning. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Good morning.
So
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
let me start with this. If you could give us a brief summary of the Battle of Pleasant Hill, because it's one of those ones that when people think of the Civil War, they immediately think of, Gettysburg, and that's it. So tell us a little
Right.
bit about, what was the Battle of Pleasant Hill? What led up to it? When did it happen?
Okay, so the Battle of Pleasant Hill was part of the Red River Campaign, which was a late war campaign in April of 1864. So our actual battle took place on April 9th of 1864. The day before our battle, on April 8th, the Battle of Mansfield took place. So this was an effort on the Union side to try to capture Shreveport, which was the capital of the Confederacy at the time. They had some other objectives as well with that campaign, obviously. But our battle was part of that campaign in the late war effort. So yeah, we're not as well known as, like you said, as Gettysburg, but we have just as much historical importance.
So, what are some fun facts that you can use to sort of entice people? Because it's one thing to just say, "Oh yeah, here we are. This is what happened." But as you know, and as I know, once you actually get there, it's a whole different thing. There's a whole different feeling to it when you see the
Right.
actual battlefield. It's a mind-boggling experience. Tell me a little bit. What's some of your favorite pieces of trivia that you like to
Oh,
give people?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, first of all, the thing that's really unique about us is that we are a privately owned battlefield and we are on the original site whenever you come to the reenactment. So, you're standing where history took place, which is so important. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is where our battle took place at. The town of Pleasant Hill was a very affluent community. We had two colleges that were in the town right where our battle took place, the Pleasant Hill Female College, as well as the Pearson Payne college for boys. So it was a very affluent community. A lot of people had their resort kind of homes there, their summer homes. So now, whenever you come to the reenactment site, it's just an open pasture. It's farmland, it's a cattle operation year round. But at the time of the battle, it was a thriving community. So that's one of the things I like to try to instill in people whenever they come is all of this took place in the middle of a town. So that's one of the things I think is super important to remember, just to have that perspective that this disrupted an entire town. And I've lived there. So I always say that Pleasant Hill never recovered from the Battle of Pleasant Hill. They went from being a very, high society type of place to being decimated in like a 24-hour period. So that's one of the things that sticks out in my mind whenever I get that question.
So to kind of put that in context for my Houston listeners here, this would be like imagine if a Gettysburg level battle happened in the middle of
Mhm.
the River Oaks neighborhood and leveled the whole thing. That's kind of the equivalent of what this battle was. Now, obviously, if you're listening right now, you may have imagined that Kaylin has a wealth of historical information, and you're correct, she does. So let me ask you this: how did you get into history as much as you are? Because even a lot of folks that are into history aren't as into history as you are.
I think that just growing up there always made me interested in it. How I got involved with the Battle of Pleasant Hill was I participated in pageants most of my life. I'm still involved with them on the planning side. And I am one of four cousins that were Miss Battle of Pleasant Hill. We have a pageant that is ran in association with our reenactment in order to promote the reenactment. And they're kind of like our walking, talking billboard. So that's initially how I kind of got heavily involved in the Battle of Pleasant Hill. But I think just growing up so close to something where something so important happened just kind of instilled a love of history in myself and my family. So yeah, I've kind of been involved in it my whole life growing up in the Pleasant Hill area. But that pageant is really how I got my foot in the door.
And I think that's kind of an interesting point, and that's why I love reenacting so much, is because a lot of
Mhm.
folks that pay attention to genealogy, to these big wars that kind of define America and world history, really, we look at these things as
Right.
sort of our family history. But the neat
Correct.
thing about the Battle of Pleasant Hill, and you just kind of touched on it there, is it's not just the battle that becomes family history. The reenactment itself becomes a form of family history for a lot of these folks. I mean, some of the guys out there, They've been doing this event for 40 years. Your family's been involved in it for a long time. Y'all have been doing it for a long time. That's something that I've been to a whole bunch of reenactments at this point.
Right.
Only Pleasant Hill has that.
Correct. And we try to kind of make sure that that family atmosphere stays intact. And I did have ancestors that fought at the Battle of Pleasant Hill, the Battle of Mansfield. My family is originally from the area. So of course that's such an important piece, and that's the main driving force as to why we do this, because so many people that participate in our reenactment had family that fought there or lived in the town at the time. But we've tried to continue that 162 years later, that family is such an important element, and especially amongst our reenactors in our community. I mean, I think of you as family. So you're part of that whole lineage too. But we always say that our reenactment is like a big family reunion. And that's really, I think you would agree with me, Ethan, what it feels like whenever we all come
Absolutely.
together.
Yeah.
And some of those people we only get to see one time a year, and that's at the Battle of Pleasant Hill. So we really try to make that be something that stays intact as a feeling, because I think that our reenactment, and you've touched on this, is more than just history. It's more than just a historical event, but it's really something that we try to keep intact, so that people have that feeling of, it's a good feeling of heaviness whenever you come there, of the weight of everything. But I think that makes our event special.
Yeah, it's something that honestly I don't think there's anywhere else in the world that does it the way y'all do it, because like you said, there is that feeling of heaviness. You do get the feeling of there was a battle here, people died here, there was a lot of
Right.
drama that occurred right here, but at the
Mhm.
same time it doesn't sacrifice the fun of it, because like you mentioned, the
Right.
family reunion feeling, that is a
Mhm.
fun feeling. There is a lot to see and do. There's a lot of entertainment. Talk to
Right.
me a little bit about that. What are some of the things that people can expect to enjoy while they're there?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different events that take place through the weekend. So we plan our event with reenactors in mind, but also the public. So of course, our main draw are going to be the two full-scale reenactments. We have pyrotechnics. We usually have about 20 to 30 cannons that are on the field, and about 600 reenactors that come in to help put the show on. But on Saturday and Sunday, we have our full-scale battle reenactments that take place at 2 o'clock. But in addition to those events, we have a full slate of events too. And you can go to battleofpleasanthill.com, of course, or our Facebook page to see the full schedule. But to kind of give everybody a quick rundown, on Friday is our school day. So education is a huge thing for us here at the Battle of Pleasant Hill. So we want to make sure that we have educational opportunities, not only for youth, but for adults that come in as well. So on Friday, that is our school day, where we have kids that come across everywhere from the Arklatex that come in for our school day. But Saturday really kicks off the events that are for the public. And Ethan, this year, I'm sure you've heard, we've added a new thing. One of the questions that we've gotten a lot is, what can kids do here? What is there for children to do? And in the past, we haven't had a very specific area. Now we will. So we are adding a children's area to our event that's going to be called Fort Taylor. Of course, it's named after Confederate General Richard Taylor, who was at our battle. And that is going to be a setup where children can come in and have educational opportunities. It's almost going to be set up like a fall fair, but all of the different booths will be education based. For example, there's going to be a relic hunting pit, and we're going to put little fake relics in there, like bullets and different things.
Okay,
So
hold
the
on, real
kids
quick,
can.
real quick. I gotta take a quick break. I want to hold you over for one more segment. Sorry, I'm on radio time here, real quick. So just pause with us through a few more ads. We're gonna talk more about what you can expect to see and do, what the kids can see and do if you come out to the Battle of Pleasant Hill next year. I'm Ethan Buchanan. We'll be right back with more of the Next Gen Report in just a minute. All right, we are here talking about the Battle of Pleasant Hill and the Battle of Pleasant Hill reenactment, which is coming up first weekend in April, I believe. Caitlin, give me the dates.
Second weekend.
Second
weekend
weekend.
of April. Yes, April 10th through the 12th of 2026.
Fantastic. So a lot of people think Civil War reenactment, and the first thing that might come to the top of your head is, okay, well, I've seen this in historical movies, and this doesn't exactly seem like the type of thing that you would take a child to.
Right.
That it's not that bad, right?
No,
y'all
it's
have,
not.
first of all, nobody's getting hurt out there. Lord willing, and the
No.
creek don't rise. Nobody's getting hurt. And then y'all, you were telling me about some of the specific things that you had planned this year for younger folks to do so that they can kind of get the whole experience and still learn something and have some fun at this event.
Yeah, so we've added Fort Taylor, which is the children's area this year. And we're also going to have a children's battle at 10 o'clock on Saturday. So they'll go through drill and kind of learn a little bit more about what soldiers went through during the Civil War in a fun and safe way. So we're really focusing on the youth because we know that they're the next generation and hopefully they'll grow up and the Battle of Pleasant Hill will continue for, another 100 years. So that's so important that we focus on our youth as well at the reenactment.
So I want to kind of touch on that the history of the reenactment itself for a minute, because we talked about in the last segment the kind of family connections, and I know people that have been going to this event for 40 years. So
Right.
talk to me a little bit about how it got started. It's my understanding that this is a pretty old event. I've heard what I consider to be horror stories about folks when this reenactment first got started. It was so long ago that they were able to take, actual authentic historical artifacts out there,
Yes.
actual pieces of uniform and rifles, which don't do that. That stuff is worth thousands. But tell me a little bit about how the reenactment got started and how it got to where it is today.
So the reenactment was founded by Dr. Gene Poinbuff and his good friend J. Frank McEnany. So whenever Dr. Poinbuff purchased the property, J. Frank was a major historian and very much into relic hunting and that kind of thing. And he was like, "Do you know what we could do? We could start a reenactment." And that was over 46 years ago. They celebrated, 1864. So in 1964, they had a major event in Pleasant Hill to commemorate the original battle for that 100-year anniversary. But then Dr. Poinbuff and J. Frank started the annual reenactment. So we are in our 46th year. We've only missed 2 years because of COVID and 1 year for a weather event. So yeah, 46 years. We're one of the longest running reenactments in the country, I believe. I think that that's an accurate fact.
And I've heard about that weather event. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it never rains at Pleasant Hill, right?
It never rains at Pleasant Hill. We have our event rain or shine. We've had really, really wet years, which I know that you've experienced. But we always say it never rains at Pleasant Hill and we're going to have beautiful weather. So we try to make sure that that happens. I always put in a good word with the Lord and pray about that a lot.
Yeah, that's
year.
important. That's important. Now, if you're listening to this and you've been listening for the last 2 segments and you think this sounds cool, I'm interested, but I've never done a historical reenactment. The closest I've ever gotten to a historical reenactment is watching historical movies. I can tell you from experience, this is a great first event to go to. This was my first real true reenactment that I ever went to, and I was off to the races, and a lot of that is because of how easy Caitlin, to her credit, makes this. Talk to me a little bit about how y'all kind of set this up to bring more people into the reenacting hobby.
Yeah, so we always have great people, and the unit that you reenact with is really, really great about helping me to bring that opportunity to people that are interested. So pretty much if you want to walk on the field, somebody will give you a uniform and a weapon and teach you what to do because we want people to enter this hobby. It's not an easy hobby to necessarily get started in. Sometimes it seems intimidating, but there's so many people that are willing to come in and help. And our job as a reenactment committee is to make sure that we facilitate an event that's going to be enjoyable for the reenactor. So we try to make sure that y'all feel welcome and y'all are taken care of. Of course, we provide all of the things you need like firewood and water, and we try to make it enjoyable and have entertainment for y'all. We provide a meal. So yeah, it's a great place to come in and get started. And anybody that's interested in doing that, reach out to Ethan or myself, and we can definitely set you up with somebody who would be more than willing to help you get started.
And you had mentioned entertainment there, and I want to kind of pivot a little bit. We've talked a lot about the battle, but that's just part of what y'all do on the weekend. One of my favorite parts is the big dance.
Yeah.
And talk to me a little bit about that. This isn't just, we see a battle. This is really a steeping, if you will, of Southern culture. There is quite a bit that goes on there. There's dances that I still haven't figured out how to do. But there's a lot of history and heritage, not just in the battle, but in some of the activities that surround the battle.
Right. So every Saturday night we have our Soldiers Ball, which is as an authentic as possible Civil War era ball with authentic period music, dances, the dresses, all of that stuff. And that's open to the public as well. So anybody that wants to come to that, just put on your Sunday best and come and join us and have a great time participating in the dance. But we also have, live entertainment there with, like I said, period music and a band playing. And this year we're going to bring back, which Ethan, I don't know if I've told you yet, but we're going to bring back the saloon that used to be a tradition at Pleasant Hill. Yes, which will have some live entertainment in it as well. And there's going to be a few surprises for the reenactors that I don't want to tell you about yet, so I'll spoil the surprise. But any visitor that comes to it will be able to enjoy those things as well. So yeah, that's just one of the fun things we do. And of course, on Saturday night we also have our luminary memorial ceremony too, which is my favorite thing that we do at Battle. So we light up the battlefield with these different luminaries that are in memoriam of all of the people that passed there, including our reenactors. We've lost several important people to us this past year. I mean, it's just a beautiful way to make a tribute to the people that we've lost. So the battlefield's lit up. I think that's probably one of people's favorite events just because it's so pretty.
It's gorgeous.
But yeah, so we try to do that just to make a pretty atmosphere too. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So that's open to the public too, and we would encourage everybody to come out and come to the dance with us. We'd love to have y'all.
So whether or not you want to just show up and watch, because it is fun to watch. I have seen from some of the video footage and the cameras and whatnot what it looks like from the outside. It really does look like you're just standing right in front of, some of the fantastic movies. If you're a fan of history movies, you've seen Gods and Generals, you've seen Gettysburg. It looks like that. It looks like you're watching The Patriot. It's really cool to watch. It's even cooler to participate in. And you can go. It's real easy. It's not expensive to get in the door. It's what, $10?
It's $5 a piece for our visitors.
$5.
So anybody, $5 and 12 and under are free. So we try to make it affordable. So for the visitor to come in and enjoy the experience. And one thing that we haven't talked about, Ethan, is the shopping. So we have shopping opportunities for everybody too. So we have historical vendors that come in that are called sutlers. So we have a sutler row, and it's really fun to just go through the shops and visit with all of our people that come in and bring their stores. And of course, we have modern vendors as well, and food trucks and that type of thing. So there's a lot of opportunity for everybody to come in and experience the battle from several different perspectives. So yeah, we hope that everybody comes out and enjoys the event. I feel like I'm probably leaving a lot of stuff out that we do. There's so many different facets that happen.
Yeah, you can't really cover it all unless you go there.
I know. One thing
that's a reason to go.
Cover. Yeah, that makes this really unique. So whenever you come in and you pay your $5, you're going to be given a radio, and during the reenactment, which you haven't got to experience this, Ethan, because you're on the field. But whenever our spectators come in, they're given a radio, and throughout the entire reenactment, we have a live broadcast similar to what we're doing now, where we have different hosts of historians and things that come in, and they talk about what's going on the field, almost like a sports broadcast, but it's history based. So you're getting some information through a live show while you're watching the reenactment. Instead of just watching a stagnant event, taking place on the field, you're actually having something in your ear that's explaining to you what's going on in the field and some history and things like that. So it makes it very immersive and interactive for the spectator.
Fantastic. Yeah, once again, I cannot recommend this event enough. I go every single year. I'll be there this year. Like Caitlin said, I'm easy to find at _Ethan Buchanan on X. If you want to attend, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help you get you in the door. I'd be more than happy to help get you on the field. It's a great event every year. Listen, I have been Ethan Buchanan. This is the Next Gen Report. We will be back on Wednesday for the podcast, and then Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for another episode of the live show. Thank you very much for listening.